My brother stole my identity, maxed my credit cards, and laughed about it, so I took him to court, took everything he owned, and vanished from the family. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. My brother Adam is 3 years older, and somehow he's always been the one everyone adored. Growing up, our parents used to say things like, "Adam just has that spark," while I was the one who quietly did my homework, fixed the sink when it leaked, and paid for my own textbooks. Adam could crash the car, charm his way out of trouble, and still have Mom cooking his favorite meal by dinner. Me? I'd get a lecture about being careful with family property. I used to tell myself it didn't matter. That being dependable was better than being flashy. While Adam bounced between jobs, I took on every overtime shift I could find. I saved enough to buy a used car, paid off my student loans before 30, and even built a solid credit score. My dad once looked at me and said, "You're steady, son, but you'll never be as confident as your brother." I laughed it off then, pretending it didn't sting. But deep down, I wondered why being steady never seemed to be enough. Adam's life looked effortless. Girls, parties, a new business idea every 6 months. He'd borrow money and never return it, yet my parents kept saying, "He's just finding his path." When I finally moved into my own place, I thought I'd escaped his chaos. I remember packing that last box, looking around the old house and thinking, I can finally build something without cleaning up his mess. But freedom has a cruel way of disguising itself. Because the truth was, Adam wasn't done using me yet. In fact, the worst part of my life was about to begin, and it would start with something as simple as a phone call. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I was at work, half listening to the hum of the office printer when my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number, but I picked up anyway. "Mr. Reynolds?" the voice said, polite but stern. "We're calling regarding your overdue payment on the vehicle loan for your 2021 Mustang." I froze. I didn't own a Mustang. I didn't even like Mustangs. "I'm sorry," I said carefully. "You must have the wrong person." The woman on the other end sighed. "Sir, the loan is under your name and social security number. Perhaps you forgot you co-signed for someone?" Her words made my stomach twist. "Can you repeat the details?" I asked, my voice shaking. She listed my full name, my address, even my birthday, all correct. My pulse started pounding in my ears. When the call ended, I felt this strange mixture of anger and disbelief. I opened my laptop, logged into my credit report, and my jaw dropped. There it was, a luxury car loan I'd never signed for, 2 new credit cards with maxed-out balances, and a store account for electronics I'd never bought. Thousands of dollars, all in my name. I called the bank immediately, then the credit bureaus, then the police. But every conversation sounded the same. "You'll need to file a report." "We'll investigate." That night, I barely slept. My apartment felt colder than usual. The shadows on the walls seemed sharper, heavier. I kept thinking, how did they get my information? My passwords were strong. My documents were locked up. The only people who had access to my old mail were my parents. And Adam, who still lived there. A horrible thought began to form in my mind. One I didn't want to believe, because if I was right, this wasn't just identity theft, it was betrayal. By the next morning, the disbelief had turned into obsession. I took the day off work and started digging through every financial document I had. The deeper I went, the more sick I felt. There were patterns, charges from stores Adam loved, deliveries to my parents' address, and even a subscription to a high-end gym near his place. My hands were trembling as I scrolled through the transactions. It was him. It had to be. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon, my pulse hammering the whole way. Adam's car was parked out front, polished and gleaming, a brand new Mustang. My stomach dropped. Inside, Mom greeted me with her usual warmth. "You should have called before coming, honey," she said, but I didn't answer. I walked straight to Adam's old room. On his desk sat a pile of unopened mail, bills, all addressed to me. The top envelope read "Final Notice." I tore it open. My name, my credit account, over $14,000 in debt. I stormed into the living room, shaking. "Adam, what the hell is this?" He glanced up from the couch, smirking. "Wow, you really need to chill, man. That's just credit. I was going to pay it off. You stole my identity." I snapped. "Do you even realize what you've done?" He laughed, actually laughed, like it was a joke. "You're so uptight. You've always had good credit. Figured I'd borrow it for a bit." "You'll survive." Mom's face paled. Dad looked away. No one said a word to defend me. Something in me cracked then. Not just anger, something deeper. Years of being the backup son, the fixer, the quiet one they could always count on. Standing there, surrounded by their silence, I realized Adam hadn't just stolen my money. He'd stolen their love a long time ago, and now he was coming for everything else. I drove home that night with my heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. I couldn't stop replaying the scene. Adam's smirk, Mom's silence, Dad's avoidance. I'd expected shock, outrage, maybe even an apology. Instead, it felt like I was the intruder in my own story. The next morning, Mom called. "Honey, I talked to Adam. He said it's a misunderstanding. Maybe he mixed up some documents when using your address." I laughed bitterly. "A misunderstanding doesn't open 6 credit lines and buy a Mustang, Mom," she sighed. "You know how he struggles. He just needs some time to get back on his feet. Don't make this bigger than it is." That line stuck with me all day. Don't make this bigger than it is. My credit was ruined. My name was on federal fraud reports, and my parents wanted me to pretend it was fine. That weekend, I went back to confront Adam again. He was in the driveway polishing the car he'd bought with my credit. "Come to check out your new ride?" he joked, tossing me the keys. "Maybe you'll finally get some attention." I wanted to hit him. Instead, I said, "You have 1 week to fix this. Pay it off. Call the banks. If you don't, I'm pressing charges." His smile faded for the first time. "You'd really do that? To your own brother?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "To the guy who ruined my life." That night, Dad called me. His voice was heavy with disappointment. "You're really going to destroy your brother over a few $1,000s. He made a mistake. You're supposed to be the mature one." I hung up without replying. For the first time in my life, I realized being the responsible one was just code for the one who gets walked over. And I was done playing that role. A week passed, and Adam didn't pay a cent. Instead, things got worse. Every time I checked my credit report, a new account appeared. Furniture stores, online shopping, even a payday loan. It was like watching my financial identity rot in real time. I spent hours on the phone with banks only to hear, "We'll need to investigate." "Sir?" Every investigation meant another hit on my credit score. Then came the day my debit card declined at the grocery store. I thought it was a glitch, but when I logged into my bank app, my checking account was frozen for suspicious activity. Someone had tried to wire money using my details. Again. I sat in my car for an hour, just staring at the dashboard. I'd always believed that being responsible protected you. That if you worked hard, paid your dues, and followed the rules, life would reward you. But now I was realizing responsibility meant nothing when someone else could destroy your name with a signature. I called my parents, desperate for support. Dad didn't pick up. Mom answered but sounded exhausted. "Can't you just work it out with him privately?" "Your brothers. Mom, he's stealing from me. He said you gave him permission." "What?" I snapped, my throat tightening. "I never—" She interrupted softly. "We can't take sides in this." That sentence hit me harder than anything Adam had done. They'd chosen neutrality over truth. 2 days later, I received a call from my landlord. "Your rent check bounced," he said curtly. "If it happens again, we'll have to terminate your lease." I stared at the wall after hanging up, numb. Adam's chaos had seeped into every corner of my life. My savings were gone, my credit destroyed, and now my home was slipping away too. And through it all, my family's silence was louder than any betrayal could ever be. By the time my accounts were frozen and my lease threatened, I'd stopped expecting anyone to help. I just wanted the nightmare to end. Then Mom called, her voice light and hopeful. "Come to dinner," she said. "Let's talk things out like a family." Against my better judgment, I went. When I walked in, everything felt too normal. The smell of roasted chicken, soft music, laughter from the dining room. Adam sat at the head of the table, glass of wine in hand, bragging about how business is finally picking up. He was wearing a new watch, my favorite brand, the one I'd saved months to afford but never bought. I sat across from him in silence as he told Dad about his company credit line. My jaw clenched. He was talking about my credit. "Must be nice," I said finally. Having everything fall into place, he smirked. Guess I learned from the best, little brother. Everyone laughed. Everyone but me. After dinner, I stepped outside to get air. That's when I heard him on the phone, his voice low but cocky. Yeah, I used my brother's info. Dude's too soft to do anything about it. Even filed taxes under his name, got a fat refund too. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Filed taxes? That wasn't just debt anymore. It was federal fraud. If the IRS connected my name to whatever Adam had done, I'd be the one going to prison. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and captured every word. My hands shook, not from fear but from something sharper, clarity. For the first time, I saw Adam for who he truly was, not a careless brother, but a predator who believed he'd never face consequences. When I got into my car that night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror and whispered, "You were right, Adam. I am the responsible one." Which means I'm about to end this. The following weeks were a blur of dread and exhaustion. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. Debt collectors, banks, even my workplace HR. I remember the day my boss called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to say it. "We received a notice from the IRS," he said carefully. "It's about irregularities under your name." My world went silent. I tried explaining it wasn't me, that my brother had stolen my identity. But all he said was, "Until this is cleared, we have to suspend you." That walk out of the building was the longest of my life. The sky felt heavier, the air thicker. I remember standing in the parking lot, gripping my car keys so hard my palms hurt. I'd spent years building a stable life. Steady job, clean record, perfect credit. And in a few months, Adam had burned it all down. When I got home, an eviction notice was taped to my door. My landlord wasn't bluffing this time. My accounts were frozen, my paycheck on hold. I didn't even have enough for next month's rent. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment surrounded by piles of overdue bills, credit statements, and rejection letters. The silence was deafening, the kind that makes you feel like you're not even real anymore. I called Mom. She answered after the third ring. "I lost my job, Mom. They think I committed fraud," I said quietly. Her pause said everything. "Oh, honey. I don't know what to say." "You could say Adam's responsible," I snapped. She exhaled. "Let's not point fingers." "You're brothers!" That broke something in me. I hung up mid-sentence, tears burning my eyes. For the first time in my life, I truly understood loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes when the people who should love you decide not to. After that call, I went silent. No more begging, no more explaining, no more trying to make them see the truth. I disconnected from everyone. Family group chats, social media, even friends who meant well but didn't understand. I needed space to breathe, to think. And that's when the idea formed. If no one was going to fight for me, I'd fight for myself. I started by gathering evidence. Every email, every bank statement, every transaction with Adam's signature. I printed screenshots of his messages asking for temporary access to my account, pretending it was for some job application. I dug through old texts where he promised to repay what he borrowed. I even labeled each file, line by line, like a detective building a case. Then I pulled up the recording from that dinner night, the one where Adam bragged about using my name for tax refunds. Listening to his voice made my blood run cold, but I forced myself to hear every word. I clipped the audio, time-stamped it, and backed it up in 3 places. When I finally walked into a lawyer's office, my hands were still shaking. The man looked at me over his glasses as I explained everything. When I was done, he leaned back and said, "You know this will destroy your family, right?" I stared at the folder in my hands. "It already is," I whispered. Filing that police report felt surreal. My name on a document that accused my own brother of felony fraud. But beneath the guilt was something else. Calm. The kind of calm that comes when you realize you've got nothing left to lose. That night, I unplugged my phone, locked the door, and sat by the window. For the first time in months, I wasn't spiraling. I was planning, and somewhere between the silence and the city lights, I promised myself one thing. I wouldn't let Adam ruin me twice. 6 months later, it all came to a head. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. That strange mix of formality and fear. I sat on one side of the room, my lawyer beside me, hands clasped so tight they went numb. Across the aisle sat Adam, smirking, confident, dressed like he was there for a job interview instead of a fraud hearing. When the judge entered, Adam even had the nerve to wink at me. My parents sat behind him, stone-faced. Mom couldn't meet my eyes. Dad just stared at the floor. The proceedings started slowly, routine questions, timelines, financial statements. But when my lawyer stood up and played the recording of Adam's phone call, the atmosphere changed instantly. Adam's voice echoed through the room. Yeah, I used my brother's info. Dude's too soft to do anything about it. Then came the line about the tax refund. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Adam's smirk faltered for the first time. He tried to interrupt, claimed it was taken out of context. My lawyer calmly slid a stack of documents across the table. Signed contracts, delivery receipts, even surveillance footage of him picking up electronics under my name. Every shred of proof laid bare. The judge's tone hardened. Mr. Reynolds, this is not a misunderstanding. It's a pattern of deliberate fraud. For the first time in years, I saw Adam's confidence crack. His face drained of color. He looked back at Mom like she could save him, but she just whispered something I couldn't hear. When court adjourned for recess, I stepped outside into the hallway. My lawyer said something about damages and restitution, but I barely heard him. I just leaned against the wall, feeling the weight lift off my chest one slow breath at a time. For months, Adam had treated my life like a game. But now the game was over, and the score wasn't in his favor anymore. The verdict came 2 weeks later. Adam was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. The judge ordered him to pay full restitution, over $40,000, and placed him on probation with a criminal record that would follow him for years. The day I heard it, I didn't feel triumph, just silence. The kind that settles after a storm, when you're not sure if it's truly over. My parents didn't call that night. When they finally did, Mom's voice trembled. You could have ruined his life, she whispered. I let out a bitter laugh. He ruined mine first. He's your brother, she said, like that was supposed to erase everything. No, I said softly. He was my brother. She hung up after that, and I knew what it meant. I wasn't just the scapegoat anymore. I was the outcast. Over the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding. I closed compromised accounts, paid off what I could, and started over. My job reinstated me after the investigation cleared, but the old trust was gone, people whispered. Some still believed I was guilty, but I didn't care anymore. One evening, as I packed up the last box from my old apartment, I found a photo of Adam and me as kids, arms around each other, covered in mud from backyard football. I stared at it for a long time before dropping it in the trash. Justice didn't feel like revenge. It felt like survival, but there was something else beneath it, grief. Not for him, but for the illusion I'd clung to. That family always means love. I took a final look around my empty apartment. The walls that had once echoed with panic now felt weightless. For the first time in a long time, I was free. But I wasn't done yet. I still had one last thing to do. Disappear. After the court ruling, I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I withdrew what little money I had left, packed my car, and drove until the city lights faded in the rearview mirror. No plan, no destination, just distance. I rented a small apartment in another town under a different address, changed my number, and deleted every trace of my old life. The first few weeks were eerily quiet. No calls from Mom asking about Sunday dinners. No text from Dad about the right time to forgive Adam. Just silence. And in that silence, I began to heal. I got a new job, contract work, low profile. I rebuilt my credit from scratch. Every paycheck felt like a tiny step away from the ashes he'd left me in. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced I'd see his name on another bank statement or get another email saying my identity was compromised. But it never came. Slowly, the fear dulled. Then one morning, an email from Mom slipped through to my new address. The subject line read, "We miss you." I opened it, half curious, half bitter. She'd written about how Adam was trying to change, how family shouldn't hold grudges. At the end, she said, "We all make mistakes. You've punished him enough. I stared at those words for a long time before hitting delete. I didn't reply. Forgiveness isn't always kindness. It's often surrender. And I was done surrendering to people who called betrayal a mistake. That evening, I framed the court verdict and placed it on my desk, not as a trophy, but as proof that I'd survived the people who were supposed to protect me. For the first time, my name, my real name, finally belonged to me again. But even freedom comes with an echo, and mine still whispered his name. Sometimes when I walk home after work, I think about how quiet my life has become. No chaos, no manipulation, no family politics. Just me, the sound of the streetlights humming, and the peace I had to earn the hard way. People say blood is thicker than water, but they forget that poison can run in your blood too. I don't talk about what happened anymore. When new coworkers ask about my family, I just smile and say, "We're not close." They don't need to know about the courtrooms, the sleepless nights, or the way my brother laughed when I first confronted him. That sound still echoes sometimes, a cruel, careless laugh from a man who thought I was too weak to fight back. But I did fight back. Not with violence or vengeance, but with truth, with evidence, with the kind of calm that terrifies people who've mistaken your silence for surrender. I didn't just stop Adam. I buried his control over me, his version of who I was. Last month I got a letter from my parents. They said Adam's struggling, that he lost his job, that maybe I should help him get back on his feet. I read it twice, then set it on fire in my kitchen sink. Watching the paper curl and blacken felt final, like the last thread snapping. My life isn't perfect now. I'm still paying off debts he created, still rebuilding what he broke. But I sleep at night knowing every step forward is mine. No one's using my name anymore. No one's taking my peace. He laughed when he thought I wouldn't fight back. Now he avoids eye contact in elevators. Adam stole everything he could, my credit, my reputation, my family's love. But in the end, I took back the one thing he never expected me to reclaim: myself. And that's something he'll never be able to afford again.